my wife's insane behavior and how it changed us. Hello and welcome to everyone. But here we are at a place where I never imagined I'd be in this position, where I'd be asking for help from complete strangers on the internet. Despite the fact that my wife and I have been married for 8 years, we had been together for 10 years prior to that. We met while in college and were each other's first and only love for the rest of our lives. In part as a result of this, I honestly believed we had an exceptional and great relationship, but it turns out it was only my perception. The last several months, my wife has been working at a new company. She struggled at first to fit in since she has always been reserved, but with my encouragement, she eventually made friends with a group of women, some of whom were single, divorced, or dating but not married. After a while, I was thrilled that she had found some new friends, but then she started going out with them for drinks, parties, and whatever else they had planned. As her change in behavior became more concerning, I sought to talk with her about it, but I didn't want to restrict her in any way since it was interfering with our connection in the bedroom. Despite the fact that my wife was not the kind to initiate intimacy, she was either too weary or not in the mood because of her continual going out. Her company recruited a new supervisor, whom my wife and her friends liked, at some point in the future. After a few fleeting references, she progressed to the point where she was praising him for how he handled particular issues that did not seem to be business-related. When I inquired about her connection with this particular gentleman, she ignored my concerns, to the point that she inquired if I regretted not having had more female experience before her, to which I responded that she was all that I ever need. I think I had a glimpse of sadness in her eyes for a single second, but she quickly shifted the conversation to another issue. When she offered open marriages as a means of enlivening our union, I was taken aback since my wife had never been this kind of person and, to be honest, was not a particularly liberal when it came to. I first rejected it and questioned if it had anything to do with the new boss, which she denied but said that she felt missed out and didn't want to lose me. Thus, this was a safer solution for both of us. Her response was hesitantly and naively as I warned her that she was risking her life by playing with fire. So we imposed several limits, the most important of which was not to sleep with anybody else in our home for a year. But my wife still goes on dates and has one-night stands, and then, as if I hadn't guessed it, she develops some kind of relationship with the manager. I, on the other hand, had a few of dates but no one-night stands since it felt strange to me, and my wife would ask if I was all right, but would not change her behavior because she thought it was strange. My love for her had gone, and the pure magical innocence of marriage was no longer there for me to enjoy. It was hurting me on the inside, I realized. I ended up going on a date with an extraordinary woman who had just relocated to the United States from South Korea. With her quick wit and infectious grin, she made it easy to forget about oneself in the midst of the conversation. It was just a matter of time until we were personal. I had never before had an encounter quite like the one I had with this lady. I had no clue a woman could be so kind and make a guy feel so desired. For the first few months, my wife thought it was adorable, but as the months went by, she began to distrust my relationship with my lover. In a flash, I pointed out that she had come up with the concept herself, and that she, too, was involved with the manager who was causing me concern. She maintained an eerie silence, as if she really wanted to say something but couldn't. She started coming home early to surprise me with dinner and to make the house extra clean, so she started dropping me off at work for lunch and started instigating closeness in the bedroom. She eventually stopped dropping me off at work. To be really honest, if it hadn't been for her deciding to open up our marriage, which I am equally responsible for agreeing to, I would have been overjoyed. The few times I did succumb to her advances were out of desperation and a desire to get it over with. There was a part of me that died for my wife, and I could tell she felt the same way. The response I got when I inquired about what had prompted the change in her, and what had changed, was that she wanted to demonstrate her affection for me and her contentment with me. I didn't want to, but I burst out laughing when I asked about her close-knit group of friends, her manager's partner, or her one-night stands with other men. She didn't respond that day, instead sobbing herself to sleep in her bedroom. When I get home the next day, she is already there waiting for me. We have reached an agreement to terminate the marriage, and she has said that the whole experience has been a horrible mistake, that she regrets everything, and that she wishes for us to be the focal point of our relationship once again. As I asked her to be honest with me and tell me what sparked all of this in the first place, she revealed that it was her group of friends who had planted the idea due to their numerous exploits, and when her manager came around, He was surprised to find that he supported her lifestyle and encouraged my wife to live without boundaries. As reported, it started as an emotional affair but only got when the marriage was canceled, according to the accounts. While like that makes it better. When she likened it to being drunk behind the wheel of a fast-moving vehicle, she said it was exciting and intoxicating, but the cost of her decision has become too great for her to bear. She understands now that she never needed a comparison, that what we had was really unique and special, but she still feels as if she was the one who ended our marriage and any chance of having a future with us together. I informed her that I may never see her as my wife again, which led her to break down in front of me and shed tears. All I could do was hold her in silence as she sobbed till she fell asleep in my arms on the couch. Despite the fact that she has resigned from her job and severed all ties with her friends and boss, and has even stated that she is willing to spend the rest of her life making amends and working herself to the bone in order to be considered a wife by me, I have not stopped communicating with her and have not stopped communicating with my lover. I'll be honest with you. My partner makes me feel like a man, as if I'm capable of facing the world in a manner that my wife hasn't done in a long time. The reality is that I'm completely at a loss for what to do in this situation at the moment. If at all possible, I would want to regain the unique experience, but my partner came to my aid when I was at my lowest point and virtually saved my life. Please be of service to me. Also, I failed to note that we have our first marital therapy session in a few hours, and I'm not sure how it will go at this point. Story 2. Why do cheaters want to stay together? Even after you find out, here's my story. I had a girlfriend for nearly a half year, or something similar to 6 months, a few years back. Everything was okay, at least in my experience. We never argued, usually concluded discussions on the same note, and simply generally understood each other. After a few months, I was admitted to the hospital on my own will. It was a mental institution since I thought my panic attacks were getting out of hand due to family concerns and such, which had so far had no major repercussions on my relationship, but I knew it would if I didn't address it, so I went into hospital for 2.5 weeks after a lengthy chat with my girlfriend. The first thing I saw when I walked out, fresh, feeling wonderful and strong, was that this chick was now with another man. It was quite the moment, since I hadn't expected this to happen after we'd gotten along so well, but it was there. I sent her a simple message. She began talking about not knowing what was going to happen and how she couldn't wait. She believed we were done since I hadn't spoken to her in a long time, like I was in a mental institution. I couldn't speak to anybody outside until they phoned me, but that's not the intriguing part. We had our conversation after I said goodbye and wished them success. She began to rant and weep about not leaving her, about how the other person isn't as important to her as I am, etc. yada yada. I didn't care and ended all connections and communication with her, although feeling terrible for the man. They just met a week ago, and she immediately places him below her ex. So, regardless of my feelings against cheating and such, I typically understand the motivations for cheating, which are usually cowardice, not being mature enough to break up and such, or just the excitement. But this? I'm not sure why they want to remain together. Like if it's a one-time thing, she made a mistake, she was inquisitive, realized it was a terrible choice, okay. But if it's numerous instances, we know it wasn't a mistake. She genuinely wants it, and even if we stay together, she'll keep going. Then why? This makes absolutely no sense to me. This also applies to dishonest men, not just ladies.